When you all come to inside of the North Look, you can basically come down to the bottom level into the tavern area. And as you kind of look around, you'll see Scramsacks at some point be able to grab an ale for a nice hearty breakfast, and you all can start your day.
So Brannick would, as he's kind of getting the ale and maybe something kind of real basic to eat, he would ask Gramsax, seen Captain Helka this morning.
She's been out and around. Let me see. And he's just kind of glancing around the room. Roll a D100 for me. Kind of like looking around and like kind of tracking where his eyes go. You are going to notice pretty much in the moment that he starts to raise his hand to point off to you. She's off in just one of the like corners, and you can see she might be nursing a little bit more of a hangover than normal. But she seems to just be inside of one of the booths, off in like the other room, like the little more like private area. And he just kind of points off to that direction, and you notice her in about the same time. And as your attentions kind of move towards her, you'll see that same kind of reaction from her as she just slowly looks towards you. And ah, you, are we all set to go?
So Brannick would look towards Johann and Velixis, kind of presumably kind of picking up from where we had ended the night before. But if we had any more discussions, I feel like we kind of left it at we had pretty much decided to take her up on the offer. But Brannick would kind of look towards them to see if any of them um, had any other thoughts between when we left her last night and this morning before he answers.
Nah, we're ready to go. See, Valissa says that she kind of just stretches and yawns while he's still waking up.
Johann says it would be good to be back on the sea again, even if it is the cursed sea of moving ice. Now there is the other business of this cabin that we could search for on the way. It's not far out of our way, but perhaps it would be best if we simply took care of the Helka adventure before we set out to find that cabin. What say ye, shipmates?
I agree. We can certainly keep an eye out. Perhaps perhaps he's this Macretius has moved on from Lonely Wood. Perhaps we'll see him along the way. But if not, I'm sure we can find him when we return.
Yeah, that it's not like the cabin sits in one spot. If we don't see it on the sea, we'll find it soon enough. If we're lucky, it'll end up popping up where we're at.
So Targos and then Bremen and then across the tundra to the sea, or Tourmaline Lonelywood and then to the sea? It seems to me a little bit six of one, half a dozen of the other. Or perhaps we could ask Helka if she has a preference.
Are you all thinking you are not having this conversation next to Helka?
Oh, I thought we'd sort of spotted her and weren't quite speaking with her yet. But
Gotcha. Nope, that's exactly what I mean, just to get a sense for where you all are. So you're probably, a little bit closer to Scramsax, if not next to Scramsax.
Yeah, I think we were kind of like having this last bit of kind of discussion, maybe as we start heading over, kind of speaking quietly amongst ourselves, and then so we'd be kind of uh, maybe more ready to answer her once we actually got over there.
so we're agreed, Helka first, and then the cabin if we see it, or we seek it after we're done with that job. Then
Yes, because who knows how long it'll take to actually find the cabin, but especially with it moving, that could be that could take a little longer than planned if we attempt to try to look for the cabin as opposed to where one that's being handling her job, which we know what we're doing and where it's at. It'd be a little easier going it this way and then searching for the cabin.
Yes, agreed.
well, with that decided, I think Johan would sort of take the lead on approaching Helka, since the poor pitiful landlubbers wouldn't know how to approach a captain, and heads over to her and touches a knuckle to his forehead, and uh, keeping his voice somewhat low, he's good morning, Captain. What do you think? What do you say to heading out on your journey today? We're ready if you are.
So she'll kind of look up to you, moving a little bit faster than she expects. Well, we have plenty of time on land before the comforts of the sea rejoin us. Let's be off. And she just kind of crawls to her feet and just kind of stands tall. And as you all are ready here, you can start to head off. The initial goings here are going to be actually heading down and to the south end of Brinchindar, where she is going to get a round of dogs with a sled. And the first part of this journey is actually going to be taken in a far simpler way, as you all will have dogs for the first time, and in preparation for the oil that you will be bringing back. So you kind of head off to the stables, and as far as things go, I think it still ends up being worthwhile to travel back through the town, and head back to the North Gate to leave from there. But over time, that's kind of like the next little bit of your time is her picking up her dogs, and then heading back through the North Gate. There can certainly be a level of she'll actually let you all know that this has to go down, and if you don't want to join her, we could meet at the North Gate. Um, we'll say in the 10th hour of the morning. Do you all have any last minute preparations before you leave Brinchindar behind?
None that I can think of.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think Brannick would just kind of stick with her.
So, as you all prepare to leave, basically everybody can pretty much ride on the sled here. As far as dog travel goes, it's a little bit faster than you all travel on snowshoes. But it does keep a pretty similar pace in that every few hours you're actually stopping to rest the dogs. Other than that, you are basically able to get to Targos, where you have to take like an initial resting of the dogs. For what it is worth, I don't believe Helga is actually going to leave the dogs and go into Targos. But again, this would be an option if you all would like to head into Targos. You have a little bit of time to go into Targos. Effectively, the dogs need to take a short rest here at Targos.
Johann doesn't have any cause to go to Targos. We'll go if others do.
So after you all get to Targos, you'll end up heading on your way off to Bremen. And this will probably be a little more properly kind of midday kind of feeling here, where as you all make it to Bremen, the difficulty is kind of the last few stages, where you effectively will see that getting to the Sharingan River, you have to look for the ice flow and kind of pick and choose which is the best way to cross. And part of what goes on is the actual movement of the dogs and the sled out into the lake. And you basically go east. I can't do this while pressing Alt. You kind of go east at the coast and travel almost to the east of Bremen before like hooking back around to it once you get back to land. In general, the idea there is that the flow of the water as it chokes down into the river actually increases its ability to um, create kind of weak spots in the ice, and you can kind of get a little bit more solid waters by solid ice by heading out into the lake where it's a little bit like calmer because there's not necessarily flow at the surface here. And that is my perhaps not realistic understanding of how ice and water freezing works, but that's how it's going to happen here. Uh, but you all will arrive into Bremen in kind of the early afternoon here. That's kind of the travel portion here. Among the things that are going to happen during some of these breaks is you're going to have a little bit more in-depth conversation with Helka about what's safe to share. And part of why I kind of wanted to at least do this as like a jump in the actual travel and then the conversation is I feel like it's more likely that this conversation is going to happen across this day than necessarily than anybody's like sitting down and speaking. So there might be parts where like one person can hear Helka and then some of the others of you are able to share it between each other, but you're kind of almost playing like telephone between getting this. But among the things that you all are going to be brought up to speed on is that Helka is looking for a very particular cabin along the Sea of Moving Ice. You are going to hear as she describes a druid who used to roam these lands. And the druid in particular had a very good friend she is hoping to find. This friend used to be summoned by a bell and is currently described or named as Angajuk. So she's just gonna at some point kind of like passing off in the wind. Um, we're looking for the cabin of the frost druid Anga and her good friend Angajuk should be our portal into the sea of moving ice. We will have to be weary about sharing our goals. If it comes up, we are going for seal blubber. Definitely don't discuss whale fat. And then maybe at another time, going into a little bit more detail, you all are searching for this cabin where the druid used to reside off on the edge of the sea of moving ice. And if at all possible, there is a boat that you can kind of paddle out onto this island. And at some point, the druid had mounted a bell in the arc of this island. The island kind of like flowing, um, having like a frozen arch, and inside of that arch was a bell that the druid hung. And Helk is hoping to summon Angajuk with the bell, and that will tend to be the most dangerous part as to whether Angajuk comes happily or in a more excitable mood. And she'll just kind of share that information. So that's kind of like the first like little bits that she shares, kind of piecemeal as you all are traveling across this area. And you can see she wanted to kind of get you all in on this before sharing some of the information, because this is almost like this is kind of like her intellectual property, why this is like her shtick.
Johann remembers that at the tavern the night before, she had sort of raised a toast to riding on the back of Anga Juke. So he mentions that to the others, and is kind of thinking that it's a rock or some bird or something like that the druid is either befriended or enchanted or something like that.
Yeah, and every time you called her captain, there was that extra little bit of um almost like a hesitation where eventually she told you like, well, I don't really have a ship anymore. Well, at least not what you would call a ship. So probably taking another little bit of time to enjoy a little bit of food, let the dogs rest for a little bit. You all would be outside of Bremen, and this would again be one of those situations. If anybody has any last minute searches that they would like to do, you can head into Bremen and snag up any materials you might need.
I think Brannick might, if there's time, he would head into town. He might try and find if there's a tavern. He might just try and potentially leave word with the barkeep too that he's maybe that they're hoping to run into a friend. I assume I don't know if we actually got it, but I assume maybe we could have gotten like a description of Macretus from Copper, like a physical description. and he would thinking that maybe he would kind of mention that he's hoping to run into his friend and just um, you know seeing if anyone had seen him or um, maybe just kind of leaving that idea that he's looking for them. They're looking for him so that maybe if they come back this way, they can kind of question again. But
So Helka can share with you that there is going to be a choice of taverns for you to go to. This particular town has a town center that is kind of named the Five Tavern Center. And among that, you would have your choice of a few different taverns: the Even Keel, the River's Mouth, the Grumpy Moose, and Black Hearted Brother. And I feel like offhand that is four. And the fifth is called Stones.
This is my kind of town.
So does that sound like Johann and Brannick are going to go into the town?
Johann certainly would. And Torleth is always going to be tagging along.
Yep. So go ahead, Velixis.
Just kind of looks around like the town sounds like it's just full of brawlers and drunks. Maybe the tavern names are misleading.
It's actually five brothers, and they couldn't agree who should be the manager of the tavern, so they built five.
Ah, yeah, that explains a lot. Y'all have fun. I'm just gonna sit here.
So while you two head into town, you can basically be guided to this area where effectively all five entrances look towards this center little area. And you can see each of the taverns has like its own sign that very clearly shows a bunch of stones, a keel, a river's mouth, a moose, and a bearded brother or a bearded human. For what it is, though, it gives you, yep, these are the five taverns we're looking for. So when you all would like to go into one, let me know, and you can meet the tavern keep.
so Brannick would, seeing there's multiple options here, he would kind of he'd say like, let's let fate decide and bring out a um oh, I don't know if he actually has a die, but essentially he wants to kind of determine at random which one they're going to go into. Unless Johan has a preference.
Johann doesn't.
Kind of like, so Brannick seeing that would kind of looking at the five taverns, starting with like the lowest, most southern one, and then going clockwise, he would suggest they go into the third, whichever one that is.
Just so you can walk into the river's mouth. So as you head into this tavern, you are going to see a smaller locale, one like central table that is essentially one side of it kind of butted up against the hearth, and then the long side kind of stretches out towards the door. So you're kind of like looking down like a long central table. There is a kind of bar set up next to the far side of that table on your right, and then it's kind of all booths like around the left, like a little bit more private like seating. Um, and then otherwise kind of like a bland wall between you and the bar where you were at here. You will see inside of this tavern that the actual sign of this river's mouth is a little bit um, more like elaborate carved wood, like placed over the bar, like itself, and kind of like hanging on a sign, like you might expect to see in a place like Luskin, or anywhere that is essentially not in the frozen wastes where they actually have signage. So, kind of heading in, it's very quickly recognized that this is the river's mouth. And for all intents and purposes, if you guys go into any of the other bars, they are all the exact same architecture. They are very much built by the same people. And just to get rid of the arguing of who gets to be the manager is why there are 5 of them. So you can walk in. This time of day, you might spot a few people inside of the bar itself. There's one person who seems to be kind of like a drunken mess in one of the corners. But other than that, you're just going to see is like when the door opens, a head kind of like pops out from the bar and kind of looks down that long wall. And you'll see as this person welcomes you. Come on in. Welcome to the river's mouth. How are you today?
Well, my friend, and Brannick would kind of be moving towards the bar as he's saying this, kind of just glancing around, not looking for anything in particular, but heading towards the bar. An ale for me and my friend here, gesturing towards Johann, and
Oh,
he
thank
would
you, shipmate.
take out. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I'll start basically pouring you all an ale on tap there, and you can kind of continue on with what you.
Yeah. So as he would take out the pay for the drinks as he's kind of setting them by is when Brannick would um like thank him, uh take a drink, maybe suggest a quick toast to Johann about their upcoming travel, just saying nothing specific, just kind of um yeah, just kind of vaguely like to our the safe travels or something like that. And then he would turn back towards the bartender and uh, uh, by the way, I was hoping to perhaps run into a friend I know sometimes comes by this way, um, name of Macretus. And then he would kind of give like a brief the physical description they presumably had gotten from Copper, and just kind of ask if is he happen to know if he's stopped by or been in town recently.
So it seems the barkeep like takes a few moments, kind of thinking over things and trying to like picture what you're describing. I don't rightly remember a Macretus. I, I surely keep an eye out for your friend, but I don't believe he's passed through here recently. When did you say would be the last time he's been here?
Yeah, he likes to move around a bit, so I'm afraid I couldn't rightly say, but I appreciate the offer, and of course, perhaps I'll uh, stop by again after our own business is concluded, and perhaps we'll get lucky. But Thank you for keeping an eye out. Much appreciated. Then he would offer, kind of he would probably yeah, he would offer a couple coins as kind of a thanks, just like an extra tip on the drinks.
So you already, I think, know that this is a long shot. Um, the idea that you should have gotten from Copper is that Macretius has not left the Black Cabin since he found the Black Cabin. So I would say, as far as whatever you might care to tip here, in kind of a enticement, you would know that you are playing a long game. So as far as things go, you'll get charged like 3 copper per ale that you have poured, but in the long run, you can tip what you would like here. But also, you still know, like, you know, not necessarily a bad idea to put out feelers, but you're also working a long shot.
Yeah, yeah, and he was Brenna kind of knew that it was unlikely, but he figured if we were since we were near town and we were stopping anyway, might as well give it a shot. And so yeah, but he wasn't expecting to be like, oh yeah, I just saw him yesterday. that kind of thing. So he would maybe, depending on how much, how long this kind of takes and how much time Helga had, said they were going to be resting the dogs, he might uh, probably just have the one drink, and then um, once that kind of his business is done, he would suggest to Johann that they return to the others.
Yeah, I think the biggest variable is kind of like how long you actually spend like drinking a beer, but if you're going to just stop at the river's mouth, let me have each of you roll a persuasion. Let's see. Go ahead and let me have each of you roll a d8. So in the process of kind of your conversation, um, I feel like there's going to be a point where perhaps the barkeep kind of picks up on where you all are going, or somebody kind of shares a little bit, maybe just like the sea nature of Johann. But at some point, this barkeep's gonna kind of look to you all, and with a little bit of extra coin from you, it's gonna be, you all seem like the adventuring type, and I have to wonder if perhaps I can. Well, we don't get ale all that regularly from the folks of Goodmead, and the harder stuff's run out for most all of the 10 towns. Perhaps you might be interested in a shipwreck to the northwest of us here. So you might find yourself on the ice. And if you so happen to find the Dark Duchess, maybe you could bring old Sikian here a little bit of the rum. Make a hefty penny, selling it to us here in Bremen.
Shipwrecks, foul luck, but they do happen. What happened to the Dark Duchess, if you know?
Oof. Well, Make another persuasion check for me. She found herself in a little bit of trouble of the flying white kind.
The scaly kind, I think he mean.
Yes. It's probably not a big deal. I'm sure it's not being watched now, but perhaps you find yourself in a situation and it's mighty profitable if you're heading off in that area, that you might be able to increase your profits and help a friend who's helping a friend, helping you find a friend. And you see, like, as he like gets confused, maybe adding too many helping a friends into the story.
Well, I don't know about you. Brannick will sort of gesture to Johan, but and then turning back to the barkeep, you had me at rum.
A tavern without rum is a sad thing, 'tis true.
I think we can certainly keep an eye out for this unfortunate vessel, and if we happen to stumble across it and recover some of this, some of that fine libation, I'm sure we could come to some mutually beneficial arrangement.
Do you know anything more about whereabouts we can find it? Anything more than on the shore or on the ice northeast? Was it northeast of here?
He's gonna like kind of point off to Mayor Dualden to the northeast and like the sea, and he's pointing in like the opposite direction to the northwest.
Righty-ho.
Well, we don't know too much about where they ever set inland, but they were coming out of Luskin, and that was braver times when they would be willing to sail into the sea of moving ice this far north. I only know that they would set in close to Bremen. We almost always had a first choice of the choosing kind before things made it to Targos.
Well, if the fates happen to put us together with this Dark Duchess, perhaps we'll take a look. And with that, Johann kind of checks to see if they're ready to go.
Yeah, so you all are all set there. Effectively, this is the same type of thing where this is somebody who knows that this Luskin crew who was bringing in the rum had basically gotten attacked and their boat sunk. But it's more or less that same idea that the person doesn't actually have any idea of where like the damage would be done, but it's effectively the same area you all are going to, that on some level the coast of this area of the Sea of Moving Ice is like the area of interest where if you're looking for direct sea access, that's where an actual like large frigate could make it to in times past.
Yeah, Brannick would I can thank Sikyun for the information, but he'd be ready to go when Johan is. And then obviously once they got back to Belixis and the others, they would Brannick would kind of bring her up to speed on uh, what happened in the tavern.
So we head to a shipwreck now.
Just something to keep an eye on or keep an eye out for while we're assisting our companion Captain Helke here.
So, from here, you all are in early afternoons, and you can start to set off for the next kind of leg of this trip, hoping to kind of make it into these hills. And theoretically, it should take you about another 6 hours to get to the edge of the Sea of Moving Ice, and with any luck, be able to spot the shelter of Anga and kind of head directly there, perhaps taking shelter there for the night. But at present, you all are all prepared. We can push on for the next leg.
Yep, I'm all set.
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 Oh yeah, I forgot about the actual break time. So technically, it's probably like early afternoon. Um, Still a few more hours inside of the light of the aurora. And you're in a waxing moon, so theoretically, if you guys push forward past the aurora going out, you should have minimal amounts of light, but that should be one of the things that you all consider here. Do you have thoughts about that? My apologies, I should have brought that up better. That you can't necessarily make it to the coast this evening.
I think partially that would depend on the weather. So, like, if it's still kind of if night falls, but it's relatively like it's not a blizzard, maybe we try and push on and try to find the this cabin if we can. But probably would be uh, see kind of how far we get with the light, and then kind of decide as the aurora kind of fades whether we think we can kind of see what the situation is there weather wise and distance wise, and if we run into anything on the way beforehand, that sort of thing.
Kind of sits well with everybody with that same idea to just kind of play it on the fly.
Yep.
Yep.
So you all are going to start to push off to the northwest here, making pretty good progress. And in this bit here, you're in a new kind of weather pattern for most of the folk here, where you're no longer getting hit by the wind that is like directing around Kelvin's Cairn, that's coming into 10 towns, but you are still being blasted by like a northern wind that is coming off of the Red Glacier as well as the Sea of Moving Ice. And in this particular instance, as you all kind of like start to climb into a little bit more hilly area here, where you're getting kind of like an overlook view. You're actually seeing, like, as you climb up more and more, the conditions are actually worsening. And by the time you all feel like you're should be at the top of this area, you are inside of more or less whiteout conditions and what you guys have um, pretty much gotten used to at this point, as some of the blizzards that will come up in 10 towns. And you're at that point looking at an hour or two until you lose the light of the aurora, and you'll have to make the longer decision. So theoretically, I feel like you guys might be looking at setting up a shelter here because you expect to lose the light in the time that it takes you to rest the dogs. But you guys can basically make that decision here, like to make a shelter while the dogs are resting, um, and perhaps camp here, or to actually rest the dogs and try to push on with a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I think Brannick's vote would be to just go ahead and set up camp here, and they should be able to make it tomorrow. But he doesn't really want to try to press on into the given the conditions, and they still made relatively decent progress. He feels so. His vote would be for going ahead and setting up camp here.
Heave.
Alexis agrees with making a camp. Although she would like to continue to move on, she realizes it'll be too dangerous, and even if they did agree, the dogs themselves might have trouble trying to get through.
Yep, best to heave to here. We'll have a long day tomorrow. We don't know exactly. It's not like we have a town in mind. We aren't even sure when we get to the coast exactly what we'll find. I mean, I think that's right? We don't have a specific. We don't know where this cabin that we're seeking is. That's correct?
You make an insight check. You're pretty sure that Helka knows where it is. But that's the cabin of Enga, I assume that you're talking about. Like the cabin of the druid.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, you're pretty sure that she knows. Or at least, rather, you're getting that, like, sense from her that she hasn't shared, but yes, she knows.
I don't have a problem staying out on the tundra tonight. So I guess that would be my vote as well.
Gotcha. So let's go for let's have you all roll survival, and Johan, yours can be with advantage. Entirely unnecessary.
As they spend the night, the others will notice Johan gets kind of melancholy.
Wait. We're not, like, fast forwarding through this night here.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. Johan is a little melancholy.
I gotcha. No, that was the idea, that you all are setting up, like, igloo, like you're creating an igloo, while the dogs are taking that initial rest. And you all will basically create a pretty solid igloo. The snow that you go for, Johan, and kind of direct people towards, is a pretty good pack snow and makes for a pretty good construction here. You all end up having it large enough that the crew of you is able to shelter rather comfortably. Um, and while the dogs don't necessarily need it, it gives you an aspect of having at least like a dugout area that gives them protection from the prevailing winds. And you all will be well sheltered through the evening here. So, as you progress, one of the things that you all will have to decide is how would you like to do the watches for this evening here? Um, and again, while you guys have your sidekicks, your retainers with you, they are not a separate person who can just go on watch. All of the roles are effectively still your main characters, effectively like the main party here. Um, so you guys can choose like a watch order, and basically Helka will pick up one aspect of that watch.
And Brennan, hopefully, perhaps the dogs would also be useful in that regard. Um, but Brannick would offer to take.
Oh, one of the things is like, yeah, the dogs are useful. One of the most important things about being on watch, though, is that that person, if they wear an actual armor that takes time to don and doffed, that person has that armor on. That's part of why like the watch is extra important. Like you guys won't be surprised by anything because of dogs, but if you don't have anybody watch, it's like a 100% chance that like Johann will not have armor on when shit hits the fan. For the wizards, not nearly as important, but that's like the big thing to kind of keep in mind when like that's what really sets the watches apart is donning and doffing armor.
Right. So, Johan, maybe would it make more sense for you to take the first watch?
Happy to do so.
Well, this is offer to take second watch.
And then Brannick can take the. Maybe he'll offer to. He'll take the third watch. Yeah.
Gotcha. So when you are all kind of sitting down to camp here, you can essentially go to bed when you want. Are you all sharing any information about what you heard regarding the Dark Duchess?
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, Brannick would just. He would be disinclined to share information. For now, especially now that they've kind of learned that maybe she's maybe not like a recent captain, so um, like she might not know have heard of this ship before, but he would be for now at least disinclined to mention anything. But it's not like he would warn the others against doing so. He would just kind of would not mention it himself.
Oh, well, I think kind of the opposite. Johann would, since it's an interesting thing that has to do with ships, he'd kind of start heading down that path. He'd certainly pause if Brennick, frowned or put a hand on his arm, but short of that, he'd probably go ahead and share what they heard. So
Does that sound
Yeah, I think Brannick would not be. He wouldn't like once as Johan, as he kind of got the sense that Johan was going to maybe mention it. Brannick would not be trying to stop him. He might kind of like maybe Johan would like notice like kind of like a slight kind of like frown forming on his mouth, but not he wouldn't move to stop him or try to interrupt him or anything like that. He's just a
so I guess
naturally secretive kind of person, so
maybe do a perception check at disadvantage for Johan. Yeah, I have a feeling you would not notice that. So I know, Rashad, that you dropped for a second there. Did you hear there's like a sort of idea, like, does Velixis have any thoughts about whether she would share uh, the rumors of the Dark Duchess with Helka?
She's honestly not sure. She more or less just chucks it up as a rumor, and she sits on it for a little bit thinking about it. More or less, she wonders if there's more information she should get about it first before saying anything. Because she wants to share it, but she wants to have a bit more information first.
So then, you as the three players of the group, do you think anybody is stopping Johan from continuing forward with talking about this?
I don't think so. Not
Yeah,
that
Brannick isn't.
And if Johan missed the cue, then he'd just bull ahead and share the story.
So while you all are kind of sitting down to a little bit of a meal after having constructed the igloo, I think just kind of throwing things back and forth with Helka, that the conversation will come up. And I think as things kind of progress here, well, I've never seen the Dark Duchess in the waters off the Sea of Moving Ice. But Luskin traders, I assume, might not go far as it would take to get to Angajux. So perhaps they might be to the west of us. If a captain lost her ship, though, might be some fine treasures for us to find. If we delay ourselves a little bit, we might be able to buy more oil with what we're able to claim from a sunken pirate ship. And she'll kind of look over you all like, I talked about if you guys can buy more oil, we would be 50-50 on what we could split the oil. Do you all want to go in, searching through this pirate loot, and we can split it evenly? And if it comes to it, we then split the other profit 50-50. Might be able to make some profit off some profit.
Compounded, I must admit, compounded profit does sound as music to my ears.
It's a lot better than not having any profit right now at all. And I don't think we can get much of what we want or need. So, it's definitely good.
Yeah, Johan would, chuckle happily at the prospect. And, and raise, I suppose they don't have any ale to raise, but he'd be pretty enthusiastic about it.
So she's going to effectively reach forward. This is again more of a situation. She is making the deal primarily with the three of you. So what you all are basically talking about with her is 25% of what you find on the Duchess will be hers. Anything that you all invest from the Dark Duchess into the oil will then compound with 50-50 from those profits. And I'm probably going to confuse my own ability to do math, but I still think that works out on making everybody richer.
Yeah, I honestly had forgotten that she had mentioned, if we had more to invest. So that would, yeah, that would make sense to Brannick.
So, while I have my connections to attempt to meet, there's a certain amount of leeway as to when they will actually be where I need to meet them. So perhaps we can get ourselves a little bit more gold and travel back with a little bit more than 3 barrels. Um, and kind of redirect you all, like, with this idea of we can go to the coast where I know Engajuk's Bell is, and hopefully head west from there. And perhaps that will help us find where this ship is stuck in the ice, or sunk ice.
Sounds fine with me.
So, solid redirect almost entirely because you chose to go into Bremen there. I do want to credit you on that one. That is quite literally the quest you can grab from Bremen, and it doubles well there. So I think while we kind of redirect here, you guys will still be on watch for this evening. I think we talked about it, and Johan is going to start the watch.
Yep.
So when you are prepared, you can roll a perception for us. And offhand, have you thought about it? Are you actually like going outside to be with the dogs? Like, are you taking like light out with you, or are you more or less just sitting inside and kind of listening to the dogs?
No, I think Johan actually would be outside because this is literally like a place where he was when he was an infant, so he really remembers a lot of this stuff. So he'd be outside and looking around and hoping to spot a Goliaths in the distance. So he'd definitely be outside. What was the role I was supposed to do?
Perception.
I don't think he'd be flashing a torch, though. I think that he would be outside in the darkness, but I don't think he'd be um, bringing out a lot of light.
Gotcha. So as you go on watch, Johan. Oh wait, was it the 821 or was that from a previous call? I feel like the 821 was to see Brannick.
Yes, the 821 was the Brannick check.
Gotcha. Yeah. So as you go out on watch, you're going to have a pretty kind of seamless night. It's a rather clear at this point. Sadly, like, the blizzard itself kind of broke up over the course of while you all were enjoying your evening meal. So while you didn't make it to the coast, You all are in a pretty nice actual camp here, and Johan's certainly enjoying himself here. And while the dogs in particular are not going crazy, you yourself actually do pick up some sounds that are unfamiliar for a few moments before you kind of connect the dots that you have, on some level, I think, heard kind of Valixis going on in this fashion. And it takes you a few minutes to kind of connect the dots. You hear kobolds in the distance. And while you can't quite make out what it is that they are saying, the few words in Draconic that translate into common in a way that you can understand tend to be something very particular. Dragon names. And you are 100% hearing them say Arvitaris. And this is a dragon that you've recently heard about, in that this is the dragon that your friend spotted the day that they lost your friend. Or, I'm doing air quotes for friend, Luther. But at this point, you are indeed recognizing that somewhere around you, there are kobolds. And whatever those kobolds are doing at present, they're talking about a white dragon.
Johann ducks back into the shelter and quickly shakes awake the others, finger to his lips, but whispers to them, and all hands on deck, kobolds about, and urges them to, arm themselves and get prepared.
Felix is kind of wakes up groggy. She's like, "Yes, I am right here. It is okay. I am asleep." And she kind of like tries to roll back over to go back to sleep because she's not quite understanding what you're saying yet.
So, Brannick would. Can you tell how close they are? Kind of similarly, he's pretty tired, but
I'd say at this point it's more that you were picking up their voices on the wind, than that they're necessarily like a direct threat to where you are. But it's kind of a point of, do you all want to do something about something before it becomes a bigger problem? Or do you want to try to hold off and see if it becomes not a problem?
Brannick might he might start to ritually cast comprehend languages, but he's of the mind that maybe they kind of take a wait and see approach for now, but I guess that would interrupt his rest though, right? If he takes the time to do that, cast a spell.
Indeed.
But he is curious about what they're saying. It might be a risk if they goes back to sleep. Yeah, I think his curiosity would get the better of him, and he would decide he would stay up and start to cast that spell, which would take him, I think, 10 or 11 minutes.
Comprehend language, is that itself a single action, or does it have a 1 minute casting time?
No, it's one action, so it's just the 10 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yeah, so 10 minutes.
Alarm is the one that's a minute, so that's got
and
confused.
Valixis is going back to sleep.
Yeah, because she didn't quite understand what she was told. So she's assuming that he probably just heard her talking in his sleep and thought that they were being surrounded by other kobolds. So she decided to go ignore it and go and roll back over. I was
So
actually
how
going
does
to ask
this?
if she. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was actually going to ask if she was hearing the other kobolds on the wind in her sleep.
No, not at all. So how does Johann feel about this? You've woken up two of your party members. One of them very much turns around and kind of goes back to sleep at the thought, and the other one is immediately kind of going into action. I feel like on some level, Brannick would kind of share, like, I can try to like figure out what they're saying. Give me a moment before he starts casting. But what is Johann doing at this moment then?
Um, I think he's kind of taken aback by that. I think he's gonna kind of shake Valixis and be like, I said all hands on deck. Yeah. There's danger about.
She kind of rolls over, still groggy, kind of like not a happy expression, and she's like, "Fine, I'll get up. What are you hearing?"
Well, it's kobolds, I can tell that, or it's kobolds, I guess I can tell that. And I only know the one or two words, but it's the name of that dragon you were talking about that you had seen down in near Karakonig.
Well, if they're still around and they're still talking, I could probably translate for you. Would you feel safer if I did that?
Yeah,
She feels kind of sleepy, so she's kind of like just got her eyes halfway open, kind of head hanging, just like, yeah, I can translate for you. Where are they at?
okay. So Johann is, kind of looks, a little put out by the feeling safer business, but he's, well, yes, I would appreciate a translation if you can understand what they're saying.
All right, where are they? Which direction are they at? Take me over there.
So Johann, goes outside and tries to point in whatever direction he felt that he heard the sounds.
Let me have the two of you do a perception check.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Brannick would have let him know that what he was, give me some time, and I might be able to, you know, uh, understand what they're saying.
With the actual waking up of Alexis, I assume you might also still be stopping casting, or do you think you're going to still follow suit?
I guess once Valixis is up and knowing that she speaks Draconic, presumably, he would probably go ahead and just follow them out and interrupting his casting.
Gotcha. So yeah, as you all step back out into the night here, um, it's doesn't take Johann long to find where they are off at. And as he kind of points out into the night, Valixis, you are able to see that there are about a half dozen kobolds. And while they are not walking towards you guys, at present they are getting closer to you because their path is basically walking east to west on the north side of you. So there's like the slightest chance that they will notice you all, but otherwise you basically see this like group of kobolds and they're walking by, and you can tell that they're um vaguely talking about their search for a white dragon. And every once in a while you are hearing that same name, Evatrace.
Okay. So Willis is hearing this. She does translate that back to Johann. Yeah, they're just talking about finding that white dragon that we saw. As to why, I couldn't tell you. But it doesn't look like they're going to be a threat to us. At present, anyway.
Does Johann have a sense of how many there are?
For you, trying to spot them is a little bit more difficult without the actual light, but you're roughly in that same area of you can kind of make out, like somewhere between like 4 and 8 bodies, and you're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's about a half dozen.
Would Brennick recall? Would he know anything about sort of the general relationship between kobolds and dragons? Would he know, like, obviously not why these specific ones are looking for this dragon, but maybe anything that would um anything he could recall that might.
You could do a history. Arcana would give you a different kind of information, but you could do a history on Arcana.
It's the same, yeah.
I think in general, most people would understand that at least kind of like mythically, kobolds have always been kind of pitched as like lesser slaves of dragons, that they work for dragons, that they do evil deeds for dragons, and that's kind of like an upbringing level of this is how people talk about kobolds in stories.
Okay, so kind of recalling that sort of what he's heard before, Brannick would maybe suggest to the others that his guess would be that they might be searching the dragon out to serve it, but at the same time, perhaps it is best if we simply let them proceed on their way and hope they offer us no trouble.
Johann kind of bristles at the idea of, at the phrase that they're going to serve the dragon, but I think nods at the suggestion that they allow them to go on their way. So he doesn't object to letting them go on their way.
And I got a sense Felixus was already kind of like, yeah, they're no bother to us.
Yeah, pretty much. He pretty much asked Johann, you feel better now? Can I go back to sleep?
Yeah, fine. I apologize for the disturbance.
You're good. Better to wake us up and be safe than to not wake us up and we all end up sorry.
So with that, yeah, you all watch and kind of listen as the kobolds kind of just go on their way, continuing along their way. Do another perception check for me, Velixis. So while you all like basically kind of just keep to the same like vaguely secretive spot where your igloo is at present, giving them their time to walk to their closest point, and then continue on away from that point as they continue off to the west. You pick up just a little bit more information. These are just more kobolds from the spine of the world. In particular, they are simply searching for anybody who might be able to kind of bring them food. And you're kind of picking up on this idea that they've heard about this dragon and they're hoping to serve the dragon and hoping that that kind of solves their issue with food. So that's just kind of like your own personal takeaway as they are walking away from you, is effectively these are just kobolds that are looking for a better life.
Okay, well, then as she hears that, she kind of goes to lay back down. She basically says back to the other, "Who knows? We might be able to make friends out of them as we yawn without giving too much information. Because before she can, she ends up falling back to sleep."
Yeah, and I think once they were kind of past, and once that seems like the risk of them potentially stumbling onto the campers past, Brannick would similarly kind of try and go back to sleep.
Excellent. So um in the long run, I'm not sure if that's really going to affect Brannick's sleep as is. Um, just because of how that interplay worked, that you didn't necessarily start that casting as things would have kind of gone about there. Perhaps we had you kind of coming to bringing out your spell book, preparing to cast when Velixis kind of did get woken up by Johann. Um, to effectively like not change the mechanics there. I feel like that all kind of is how time is wibbly wobbly here. But for what it is worth, if I can get another perception from Johann as you kind of sit back to your watch, at least a little bit more on point, knowing that you've at least had some interesting things happening, if not perhaps. Nope. He's like, fuck it. Our danger is gone for the day.
Well, I guess I won't be waking them up no matter what I hear.
Uh, so, at some point, Johan, you are going to wake up and
Having a bomb
uh,
staring at you.
as you come to Johan. Oh man, how do I want to play this? Let's take a quick break here, because I want to use the restroom and I want to decide how to play this moment off.
That's a little bit terrifying.
Sounds good to me. I'll be back in a few.
I hope things go well in the restroom.
Don't fall in.
One thing I did want to actually bring up with the two of you to potentially keep in mind, um, is that you both, being wizards, can game the system. And if you guys actually start copying your spell books to be prepared at the danger of losing your spell book, You also then have a spell book that you can hand to somebody else to learn and copy their spells. And if you do this the correct way or the gamey way, you too can learn 2 spells every single time you level.
Oh, I thought we needed we needed to purchase like special inks and stuff to do that.
You do indeed need to do that, but that's part of what I mean. Like, if you guys go about this the right way, it's not necessarily like cost effective. It's not cheap, rather, to do. But that's part of being a wizard is one, just having a backup spell book. But if you guys back up your spell book, you then also have a way to hand your spell book to somebody else and double the amount of spells that you have known.
See, I thought about that, and I was just like, I wonder how that would even work out.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea to keep in mind if this they make enough profit from this, and and at that point too, they'll have kind of. I feel like wizards would be fairly kind of protective of their spell book, but we haven't really been. I mean, I guess we went to the fortress and stuff, but like maybe once we've had this adventure, and if we have a little more gold in our pocket, Brannick would be maybe interested in pursuing that.
And part of the dangerous thing is yeah, like, you don't necessarily just want to hand over your spell book, um, like where you only have one spell book. That is definitely a trust issue thing for sure. That may not be in your character to do. But that just doubles the time component of doubling your spells. Basically taking 3 times as long to do everything, like as you're, copying spells. But the alternative is, and the safe method is to effectively copy your own spell book during your downtime, and then during downtime swapping spell books and copying each other's extra spell book until eventually your extra spell book now has twice as much into it, and then you copy your extra into your original. But yeah, that's one of the things, like having 2 wizards, you guys have the potential. It may not be character viable, like in character viable, but you guys have the potential to learn a stupid amount of spells simply because you have 2 wizards.
Yeah, I mean, making up his own backup is definitely something Brannick would do, and then
Yeah, that 100% is in character. That when you guys have wizards should never have money. Just straight up, like, that's one thing that you should get used to as a wizard. You should never have money. If you ever have money, you want to be buying ink, so you can copy spells into your spell book. But you want to have 2 or 3 spell books as soon as possible. Like a paranoid wizard would want to have 3 spell books. Are you around?
Well, Melissa's definitely paranoid about losing her book after the incident with the other wizard, so she's she's definitely going to be looking for ways to get another copy of her book, just in case.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite spells. Like, it's called like wrist pocket or something. I absolutely love that. And I couldn't believe that you were like, yeah, I'm handing them my book. I'm like, wait, your spell book? Like, do you understand what that means for you as a wizard?
I did, and the thing is, so does my character, which is why she asked again, but she was thinking what was going through her mind was that okay, maybe he's gonna give me a spell or something, or maybe he's gonna look through it and maybe see what kind of wizard to try to get a handy on what kind of wizard I am to help me find one. She didn't expect her spell book to just go vanishing.
well, once burned, twice shy. So I feel like she won't do that again.
Yeah, I'm back. I just in case.
Excellent. Alrighty. Oh wait, I want to put my headset in. Okay, so we left off with effectively Johan kind of getting a little bit too comfortable, and just kind of losing a little bit of track of things here. Johan, let me have you roll a d4 for me. Excellent. So, Johan, at some point here, your comforting night's watch. Oh shit. I was supposed to be watching. And you're kind of coming to, and the first thing that you're going to see is an ice sculpture of yourself staring at you. And as you kind of look around, there's ice sculptures of everybody. And you look around further, and 3 of the dogs have ice sculptures. Most of your party has an ice clone right next to it. And they're all just frozen blocks of ice. But somebody is inside of your camp making sculptures of each other, of your party. What's kind of your first thought, and what's your thought as you kind of look around at the camp and see all of these like ice mimics of your group? If you are speaking, I don't think you're pushed to talk.
Oh, oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
So okay, the first thing he thought was devilry, and then the second thing he was contemplating was he knows a shatter spell, which he thinks might be pretty effective against ice sculptures. Um, but it's only in a 10-foot radius sphere. So how many of the ice sculptures might he affect if he sort of instantly threw if almost in a reaction to just waking up, he threw a shatter spell?
I think that would probably be the like 3 of the dogs, your own, and maybe 1 or so inside, but you're probably going to collapse part of the actual the dome of the igloo.
Okay, he'll pass on that. And
Well, I feel like if you're thinking about it, let's have you do a wisdom save and interpret what you think from what you roll on a wisdom save. Gotta follow
Bruh.
the dice. You were thinking about it.
I'm just waking up, having a hard time clearing the cobwebs.
Yeah, so I think like your first thought as you kind of wake up and there's this blue face staring at you, shatter, and you're about to wreck these ice sculptures, and part of the igloo is going to collapse as well.
Yeah, I
Do
think
we
so.
hear this?
Oh, you're going to hear the shatter.
Does it wake me up? Does it wake us up?
Yeah, I don't think anybody is sleeping through a shatter. I'm pretty sure it has it's a thunder spell. It's most certainly
Yeah.
going to wake people.
Painfully intense.
Yeah, I don't have like a quick key of shatter in my things yet, so I don't know the distance of the actual thunder crack. But I feel like, let me have a dexterity saving throw at disadvantage from Velixis and Brennick.
I forgot to click the disadvantage for, so I guess that wouldn't be +3.
It just takes the 15. Yeah.
Okay.
So as the actual shelter around you all is going to collapse around you as you hear this thunderous clap. And Brennick, you're going to take 5 bludgeoning damage as the ice kind of rains down. Belixis, you're going to end up taking 2 of the bludgeoning damage as it starts to collapse. Let's go for, I guess realistically for your minions, it's simply, I don't think it even matters for them because their hit points are kind of a moot thing, but Helka will matter. All right. Let's go for. So she will fail as well. Yeah, Helka is definitely going to be buried and unconscious inside of the ice as it collapses. So, Johan, as you wake and destroy this face that's kind of staring at you, you're going to start to see as the shelter beside you starts to collapse under this spell that you've brought down. And you see as Velixis and Brannick are starting to crawl out. You see as Stavrin, Torleth, and Florinda all crawl out. What are you doing?
Uh, well, he's you know what? He's going to render aid. So does he realize that Helka is buried and potentially dying? I would suffocating.
Yeah, right now Helka is the one person that you do not see crawling from within the collapsed igloo.
I think Johan would move to try to make sure that. Yeah, so I think he's going to try to move to make sure to try to find Helka. If he sees, was it Velixis who was really bloodied? Someone took a lot of. If someone is very bloodied, he would note that too and be prepared to give aid.
I don't think Felix is very bloody. She lost a little bit of health, but not like a lot. So
Yeah, and Braddock doesn't look that bad.
she is cursing up a storm, though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Braddock looks more like shocked and surprised, but not like badly hurt.
All you can hear Felix saying is "son of a," and then in Draconic, other language, in Draconic, she starts to curse, and then like when I find it, and it's just back and forth between comment and Draconic about what she's gonna do to the person that destroyed y'all campsite and woke her up from her sleep. She is not happy right now.
Johan is gonna slink away in shame when this is all over.
You hear gasps of air from within the igloo.
I think I don't know if we're in kind of like a turn order or but I think
More or
Braddock's
less like figuring out what you're trying to do, like in a circle, and then moments are going by,
Yeah,
but not
Brannick's
necessarily
first.
like initiative.
Okay, so Brannick's first thought as he kind of is climbing out from, he's thinking they're under attack. So his first thing would be to cast Mage Armor on himself because he has no idea what's going on, and then kind of looking around trying to figure out, you know,
Give me a perception at disadvantage. As you're looking around, God, this campsite looks wrecked right now. Um, so you are probably already like mostly out of the snow, but are perhaps like partially buried, like from the waist down, when you get conscious enough to mage armor yourself. The igloo is pretty much destroyed. You can see um all of the dogs are now like up and kind of yiping at you all, but they don't seem to be focused like outside of camp. They're focused like in towards your camp. And I think at present, Johann is more or less like facing towards you. And I think probably with a little bit of like a panic to his face.
Yeah, so Brannick would be trying to essentially extricate himself, for the rest of the way from the snow and kind of spotting Johann and be like, um, what in the hell is going on, Johann?
Some devilish sculptures. Johann gestures at any of the remaining ice sculptures. Yeah, that's some devilry is afoot.
I don't think any of the sculptures have survived this. I feel like there might be sculptures inside of of the igloo, but none of you are still inside of it.
Felix's walk goes over to the dogs to try to calm them down. I guess she's not paying attention to what Brennick and Johanna are saying. She's more concerned with calming down the dogs.
And
Gotcha.
would Brannick also notice that he doesn't see Helka?
Yeah, I think you're aware enough that like you're noticing as well. At present, you've got like everybody outside of the igloo except for Helka.
All right, so if he can free himself, he would like be to Johann, like you need to get Helka out of there.
So yeah, as you're kind of like clearing your way and starting to think of Helka, you would hear like the gasp of air, and then as you're kind of getting to it, like actually like moving forward, you're not hearing anything right now. Having Valixis do a animal handling for me, and then Johann, what are you kind of thinking here as you are face to face with Brannick as he recognizes that Halka is missing as well?
Johann is doubting his own eyes and wondering if he simply had a crazy nightmare. And but he is very aware of the fact that he's kind of brought disaster down on the party. He is going to, he'll cry, Helka, she's still under the snow, and is going to attempt to dig up in the ruins of the igloo, just trying to find where he thought she might be.
Gotcha. Let me get a strength check from you. And then Brannick, I feel like you're kind of in that same boat. Yeah. An athletics or a strength check from you as well.
Yeah, once he's free, he would go to do the same thing.
So you all are getting into the actual space where things are. And Johann, while you do not get directly to seeing her condition, you are able to basically dig down to where you see um, signs of her body. And this is that moment of you don't see any movement from her. You don't hear anything from within the igloo at present. Um, you know somebody can go without air for a lot longer than somebody can kind of last while they are in their last throes of life. What is Johann thinking here as you uncover like the leg of Helka?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. That if it's a
I lost you at that's exactly it. If it's a
okay, if it looks like it's mostly just a not a great weight of ice sitting upon her, and it's just that she's trapped, he doesn't panic, but he definitely has it in his head that he could cast aid, um, if if necessary. If he's not freeing her quickly, he's definitely thinking about casting aid.
does that mean you are not?
No, what the heck? He's kind of freaked out and acting hastily. I think he's going to cast aid.
Gotcha. So who else are you aiding at this point?
Brannick and Velixis.
Gotcha. So when you do so, you are going to hear a gasp from within. You see is like that leg twitches in an initial moment of kind of coming to, and see that it's still pinned. Like there's a moment where she starts to move her leg, and then she can't actually move it. But she seems to be moving. And at this point, Velixis, you've got the animals are calmed. You see the two of them are um, kind of fighting their way down into the snow. At this point, are all three of you going? Well, I guess realistically, are the two wizards going to be trying to dig out Helka at this point, or is it still just Brennick?
I mean, Braddock's continuing to try to dig her out.
Yeah, Villis is gonna head over to try to help dig out and probably bring the dogs with as well, since that's probably why they were. Since she realized that's probably why they were barking towards the camp.
The dogs are more or less still like not like pinned into the ground, but like harnessed into the ground. So you really have the choice of kind of like freeing the dogs or actually going to help at that point.
Then yeah, if she when she realized that if they're still harnessed into the ground, then she's just gonna go leave them there since they're calm now, and she's gonna go help dig out.
Gotcha. So let me get athletics from the two wizards here. Consistent, Brannick. Four,
He
five,
is
six,
not
seven.
yeah.
Going for that straight. All right. So as you two like actually have a location of where her body is now, focusing your work effort a little bit more, you two are able to get to the point where you uncover the last of the bits that are actually pinning her down. And as you kind of get into this area, you are starting to see the first signs that not all of the igloo has collapsed. And you can actually see um, a little bit of, say, let's say a frozen version of Helka that's actually like right beside her that seems to be like kind of calmly, very peacefully in sleep. And it's just this very pristine blue ice. I guess really you guys don't technically have light right now. So it's still like it has the sheen of ice from the little bits of the moon that are there, but you can see like that very calm, comforting sleep on her face as you're like digging out the actual person. It's like right beside her, and it's just kind of a strange thing to see. Like, there's an ice sculpture of Helka right beside her, buried in the ruins of your igloo.
So we can see that it is a sculpture.
Like, what are you getting at there?
Oh, because Valixis was gonna look at the sculpture and then look back at Johann and essentially just say, "No wonder we probably got attacked. He was busy sculpting stuff."
Yeah, there would definitely be a certain sense of um this is something very weird going on here. um I think perhaps at first, yeah, your first like idea might be to wonder if Johann spent the night like sitting here sculpting this sculpture of his new love, the pirate Captain Helka.
Well, Johann, were you sculpting stuff? Is this why we got attacked?
Johann's eyes, are still a little wide, and I think he stumbles over himself with, no, it was devilry. You can see for yourself. Something was in the camp creating these shapes. Um, it,
What
So
do you mean
as
something was in the camp making shapes? Did, did you fall asleep?
uh, I did. I, I don't know why. Yeah. And his head just. Well, I mean, he's still trying to dig. The main thing is he's still trying to dig and get and stabilize Helka, but he's extremely hangdog and ashamed.
Yeah, at this point, Helka is good. You guys have done that. You can certainly see like that same sculpture of Helka as they like continue to like basically like unbury her while you are healing her in that few moments. So there will be a certain, at least there is a little bit of confirmation that the sculptures were not all in your imagination. You are now fully conscious. It's what, like 18 seconds after you woke up to a vision of yourself staring at you. Um, and then cast Shatter to cause all of this. So you're still like moments away from that. But the adrenaline is flowing, Johann. And there's a certain sense when you see the actual sculpture unburied, like, good. That wasn't all just in my head.
Yeah, he seizes on that, and there, and almost you can tell he's trying to convince himself as much as the others. And to that, for that extent, he's still, like when he sees it and points to it, he's looking around. He's trying to see anything that any movement in the camp or outside the camp that could, be the creature or creatures that did such a thing.
Roll a perception for me. I'll still be disadvantaged. So as you kind of look around, you don't see anything in particular, but you do pick up at least a little bit of an idea that you also don't see footprints anywhere. And that kind of gives you a little bit more cause to look a little bit closer. Let me have everybody roll a investigation here. Can you beat Brannick, Velixis? So, Brannick, it's already kind of starting to connect dots in your head. You know about these creatures. There's only one thing that would do shit like this. And you're looking for Chwinga footprints. And it doesn't take you long to see just these little dots in the snow between all of these different points around camp. And you see a sign that at some point a Chwinga must have stumbled onto Johann while he was sleeping and sculpted a little gift for him to wake up to. And then he moved on to the next of you and made a copy of them, moved on to the next of you, made a copy of them, and over what could have been like days to your conception of making these ice sculptures, because these are like, I don't think there's mirrors as good as what you all are seeing in these ice sculptures. This thing had plenty of time to sculpt you. Magic wise, it doesn't really take that long, but as you kind of go around camp, you're picking up like that this creature was going through camp and it was leaving each and every one of you a little gift of yourself sculpted in ice. Um, and apparently Johann woke up in the middle of this happening.
Okay, so once Brannick spots the little kind of, he's seeing the dot, then kind of once he gets like a little bit of a closer look at the part of the sculpture of Helka and sees kind of just how exact it is, and kind of starts putting kind of these things come into his head. He's gonna like turn back towards Johann and Velixis and be like, I think I might know what did this. If I'm right, we've shouldn't have anything to fear from them. They're, from what I know, more playful than anything. Though I imagine Johann, waking up to something like that might have been clearly a bit of a shock.
Anything that could do that could have slit our throats as easily. Johann, slit our throats, I tell you. But he's clearly just utterly ashamed of having woken up, having almost killed everybody.
Well, this is just wonders like, okay, so they sculpted us. Why would they collapse our igloo on top of us? Because she still doesn't know.
Johann will sheepishly, tell the whole story and, be looking down and casting, little puppy dog eyes as he, well, and then the spell did perhaps contribute to the collapse of the igloo on top of you, and so again, totally hangdog and embarrassed.
Well, hopefully the commotion hasn't attracted anything more dangerous than those Chwingas.
Wait. So the reason we got collapsed, the reason our igloos collapsed, is because you got scared by your own face.
Oh, they could have cut our throats. Cut our throats. It could have.
But it wasn't that scared you, is it?
Well, just scare. I'm not sure. Scared was the correct word. Could have cut our throats. They could have.
She says, "Are you sure?" And she like points her thumbs back to the damage done.
Well, yeah. I Johann lapses into embarrassed silence with occasional mutterings of "could have cut our throats."
I think you may need some sleep, Johan. I think you may need some sleep.
Brannick is he's looking over the wreckage of the igloo and just thinking of the work it's going to take to try and rebuild it if they want to for the night, and he's just kind of like sighing to himself.
As you all kind of look over the actual wreckage, there's going to be a certain sense of even the moon is approaching setting. At this point, most of you are on the kind of like last legs of your rest. As far as things go, most of you expect dawn to be coming in like an hour to 3 hours. So there's a pretty solid idea for most of you that the night's rest is coming to an end here. As far as things go, Johann might have to kind of sleep into part of the night, or part of the day. But you guys do have the actual dog sled still, so that shouldn't be terribly problematic itself. But there's kind of a like little bit of you that is just recognizing perhaps we don't have to rebuild the shelter. We might benefit from clearing out a little bit more of it, but basically using it as kind of like a windbreak at this point.
Okay. Um. Yeah, Brannick would be curious to see if he can find. Um. I guess Johan presumably would have told him that he saw eventually after he calmed down a bit. That he saw sculptures of each of them, and Brannick would be curious to see if his was one of the ones that got destroyed or if he can find it.
Roll a D100. Seems perfectly viable that you're able to find yours. Um, let's say you find like part of it almost just like a bust kind of thing, or like a Roman bust where it's like just like the kind of like throat up, you know what I mean? Like it might not be like the entire sculpture survived, but you're able to find your face.
Okay, yeah. Um, and are these basically are these life size, like exact replica type?
Oh yeah, yep, definitely.
Yeah, Brannick's almost. I feel like Brannick is he's fairly vain, so um he might have this thing around for a bit.
I love it.
But other than that, just till sensing that how there's probably not really it's not really worth rebuilding the full camp given how much time has passed. He would just kind of um, go about helping, trying to essentially just create a bit of a windbreak for the remaining time in between, kind of admiring his ice sculpture face, just like kind of stealing glances at it.
So as you all kind of get a little bit of normality here and prepare to set back in to kind of get back to relaxing and a little bit more sleep, who's going to take the next watch?
But let's just take the next watch.
Gotcha. When you are prepared, are you doing anything for light, or are you kind of just going off of the dim light of what remains of the moon?
She's gonna have a small torch. She's also gonna take her some of her ink and paper and work on copying down her spell book or some of the spells from her spell book so she can make an additional copy later. And she's also just gonna have her dagger at her side right now.
Make a Constitution check for me.
You know how much a human head weighs?
I feel like the biggest thing is it's going to be much different with ice, but I would say effectively just like do like 5 or 8 pounds.
Got it. Okay. I want to add my ice sculpture face to my inventory. So
Yeah, I feel like I remember hearing that our head is 10% of our body weight. I don't think it's body mass, but I'm pretty sure I've heard it's 10% of your body weight. So Felixis, here's the thing about doing it the on the go here. You can do a little bit of like doing spell work. That's what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, pretty much right now she just, I guess right now since she's just copying it down, but not like quite moving the spells over just yet. More or less just making the copy, writing down what each one does for right now.
Okay, so part of what I would say is you do need to buy special inks. It's not just like the normal ink that you start with, but just kind of going over things and like taking notes to yourself. It's a struggle out in the wild. Like you guys are approaching a time in the game where you're going to have downtime. This is not nearly the same kind of downtime as being on watch. This is time where you don't necessarily have anything to do, but you should be watching too. But you're also in the wild, and now you guys have no protection at all. So there's like a certain level of how all of that works. But like when it comes time to actually copying your spell book, you guys are going to have to buy like an expensive ink, and you have to buy a new book as well. Um, but like you can do a little bit of work here, and what this is going to kind of come down to is like the very nature of what you're doing inside of this in Icewind Dale. This is a struggle to like sit there and keep the torch lit so you have light to see by, to actually like be able to like keep your ink from like drying up like moment by moment. So you're going to kind of quickly come across a few of these issues where like it's a struggle to work when you're not in like an inn where you're paying for a nice place and have like a desk to sit at. And that's just one thing you'll kind of come across trying to do it in the wild. But in general, like you can spend some time like with your book here. When you're ready, do a perception check for me at disadvantage. So while you are going through your book and kind of working here, um, you don't really hear much going on, things kind of taking effect. But eventually you do start to kind of like turn around and notice like was the wasn't the igloo a little more damaged than that? And you just kind of shake your head off. I must be tired, and kind of tell yourself excuses for a little bit and go back to your things. And then you kind of look on and you see is like the sun or the moon sets, and time goes by where you start to see like the first signs of dawn over the horizon, and you see that the igloo is it's rebuilt, and all of your friends are sleeping inside of the igloo now. And there's like a troubling sense to recognizing that something's going on right here. Uh, But you're also about to see the sunrise, and there's a little catch to you that's telling you, like, I don't want to see the sunrise. This place also doesn't see a sunrise. And you've never been this far west before. Let me get another perception check from you here. As the first rays of light start to shine over the sea of ice, well off to the west of you, in that moment where you kind of expect to see the first signs of dawn, you are going to see the biggest bird that perhaps you've ever seen flying west to east. And as it progresses more and more towards you, a deep darkness is following behind it, and you're watching as the rays of the sun are just consumed into this darkness. And you're eventually going to see as this creature flies, not like directly over you, it is still a good bit to the north of you. But when you're kind of sizing it up, that creature has the wingspan of a dragon, and of an ancient dragon. It very much looks like a bird. It has feathers, and behind this creature is just darkness. And as it flies across the sky, you're going to start to see the first signs of the aurora as they follow this creature. And as the creature continues to fly off into the east, you're going to see as the aurora extends behind it, as the dawn kind of overtakes your camp. And you have this experience kind of all to yourself, where this is one of the strangest nights of camping that you will probably ever have in your life. And you are pretty sure that you just watched as Oral just cast her rhyme and prevented the sun from rising across Icewind Dale. But it's time for you to wake up the next person who's going to be on watch. What is Velixis thinking?
After seeing the dragon, well, shoot, I'm gonna just go with what I thought immediately.
But wait,
Yeah.
wait. That's not a dragon. That was a bird.
Oh, it's a bird.
Yeah. But it's like larger than a dragon.
Well, after seeing all the sun being prevented from rising, she just kind of goes towards. She just kind of whispers to herself, "Fucking hell," and that's pretty much it.
Gotcha. So when you are ready, you can wake Brannick.
Wake up, Brandon.
So Brannick is he'll kind of come to. He's got his ice sculpture head kind of close by. He'll kind of like come to and still groggy, given kind of like the earlier interruption, and then he would be probably very surprised to see that he's underneath an igloo again. What happened? What's going on? Is it is it my watch?
Yeah, it's your watch. Also, the eagle's fixed. I'm not fixed. I'm not sure how. I didn't fall asleep, but I don't really care right now. We ain't dead.
So, Brannick, when you are ready, let me get a perception check from you. As you take to your watch, kind of looking over things, you're reasonably sure that while the shatter might have scared the Chwinga, this is a pretty solid understanding of perhaps it recognized you all still in like a little bit of danger there. And just kind of like reassured by the little bust of yourself and enjoying nar- the narcissism of having it. You have a pretty seamless watch. Eventually, it is time to wake everybody. For what it's worth, everybody can take a long rest here. But Johan, you are still technically going to need to sleep during like the first part of kind of like the dog portion of this next day here.
Okay, but I can recharge my spell slots.
Yeah, like for what it's worth, you might as well take it now. Technically, you don't finish your long rest yet, but I don't think there's any reason to hold you off on that.
Okay. So just Johann's be
Sorry, I think you cut off there.
now the shame of it all has really kicked in, and he's um very solicitous of helping other people with, oh, here, let me get that for you, and I'm not really hungry, maybe you'd care for the rest of this, of my ration and so forth. But he's just absolutely uh humiliated by the night before.
You've had a long night, Johan. Perhaps it'd be best if you rested a bit longer.
Oh, he insists. Yeah, oh, no, I'm fine. But then eventually, once they're on the sled or whatever, he will in fact doze off again.
Strange night. Strange night. And Brennick would probably like during the morning he would kind of inquire of like speaking with Captain Helka, just kind of inquiring like hope hopefully she's recovered a bit and maybe apologizing for the events of the previous evening.
Yeah, I think you'll find she's not holding it against anybody. I think this is the very nature for most like people. This is the reason why you don't leave. The safety of the towns, and this is also the reason why her venture is profitable. Um, like effectively like she's offering already to pay the three of you like a year's wage to do this like 10-day trip. Um, and you all understand that she has more profit margin if you guys were investing your own goods in it as well. So you can pretty much understand like that's part of what everything is going on with, and part of why she's willing to pay you all so much for 10 days. It's one of those things like you all are doing your jobs admirably. I'm glad nothing permanent happened, especially before we reach the dangers of the sea itself. But nonetheless, this is why I have brought you all on, and what I had hoped for in my guardians. So, go ahead.
Oh no, Brennick would just kind of he'd be kind of glad she doesn't be holding it against them, and that was it.
So, as you all prepare for this day here, Y'all start off with a little bit of rations in the morning. Start to get all the dogs set back up to the actual sled itself, and you can basically bundle Luther up to kind of continue to rest through the day himself. And as things progress forward here, you all will start to push off to the northwest. And over the next few hours, you push forward for a couple of hours, uh, and then you have like oncoming snowstorms, but it's worth at this point to kind of push through the actual like blizzarding aspects of what is going on here. There is always a danger of the weather itself, and you guys are at that point where you kind of just have to gamble for it. Um, Helka is reasonably sure that she knows where to go exactly, and hopefully, essentially, if you all get lost on the way to the actual coast, you'll be able to recognize the proper way to head to find Anja's actual camp along it. But moving forward, um, you all rest the dogs and push forward in that kind of last leg. And come pretty close to what you were hoping for. As you all get to the coast itself, you're going to be a ways off from the actual camp. But as you approach the coast and kind of gain that first little sight, Helka is able to identify the point where Anja's camp is and starts to move off to there. And you all will make camp before having to set the dogs to rest. Oh no, I forgot to put the fog of war on. You guys saw nothing. So eventually, pushing on for the camp, you all have your shelter. You can see an island off to the northwest of you. And at this point, you all are about early before midday. This is one of the camps that you can take shelter in while you're resting the dogs. And you have an opportunity to basically decide whether you are going to try to oh man, I forgot that technically you're redirecting away from this place. I should have done that differently. So this is probably where Johann is going to be waking up, where you'll have finished your long rest. I think, yeah, you guys will probably stop here and maybe leave some of your actual supplies behind as you kind of unload some of your rationing into the actual camp that Aja has left behind. This building is effectively like a stone building that sits right along the coast. Inside, you find like an old rotted like bed and a bunch of rotted wood. While there is certainly like a factor of you can still burn it for heat, a lot of this stuff is effectively rotted with time just showing you how long it has been here, um, left untouched. Uh, but as you all kind of set up essentially like a little supply cache, maybe not even necessarily in the camp, Helka kind of like digs like a little bit of snow up near the actual hut to kind of hide some of the supplies, so you're not risking everything by moving away from here. Um, but knowing that there's like a certain aspect of you guys still plan to come back to here. And I think that would be where pushing on to the west is your general idea. And I think what we'll do is have Johan do survival at advantage with Helka helping you. And then let me have the other two of you do perception checks as you all are effectively looking for this ship. Yeah, so probably about like 2 more pushes off to the west. Like about 5 or 6 hours off into that direction. Oh, I didn't even finish typing it up there. Sweet, sweet allergy medicine is breaking things. So that is where you all find Anja's location, the camp where you basically set up your supply cache. And then pushing off even further to the west.
You look cut out.
Yeah, my bad. I can't do a lot of things while pressing my push to talk button. So let's say the circle is your supply cache and where you all basically find Anja's hut. And a few hours to the west is where you all are going to spot the Dark Duchess off in the sea. So while you like approach to where the Dark Duchess is frozen into the ice, you all will kind of see it a ways off before you actually have to encounter it itself. You're approaching late in the actual day at this point, roughly, like the 16th, 18th hour of the day. You probably have 2 to 4 hours before the aurora gives up. As far as like the mechanics go, effectively, you guys are roughly like 3 to 5 o'clock in the evening right now. And kind of looking at things, you can make your way out on the ice floe and make it to where the Dark Duchess seems to be frozen into the ice itself. And you guys have that kind of choice of how you would like to approach this moment.
So would Brannick have been able to, once they kind of spot the thing and start heading out, would he have had been able to try to cast ritually detect magic as they're approaching it?
You're gonna have to stop to actually cast it. As far as I think rituals go, like you can't ritually cast while doing anything else. And that would also include like you can't do it on the actual sled. Um, I think of like a ritual cast as like you stop and you have to prepare ingredients where you're like drawing the actual like magical circle type of thing, like you're creating something that you need to be stationary for. So you could stop at the coast, ritually cast it, and then walk out, or you could just go to the Dark Duchess, ritually cast it, and then walk through it.
Okay, no, yeah, that makes sense. I don't think he would have in that case, I don't think he would have, because it would have taken them 10 minutes to. I don't think he would have stopped everybody, so he could cast. So he would have cast. Have cast mage armor, but other than that, he would just be going with the others for now.
So you guys are within sight of it. It is frozen into the ice. As far as you can see, this is just like a rather frozen chunk of this ocean that is before you. And the ship is now just a frozen part of it. You can still see some of the rigging, the masts. Are you all just starting to head out and approach it?
Just a quick question: should we be seeing anything on the screen? Just got a blank screen, so.
At present, I don't have it revealed to you. I'm kind of looking to see what side you all go to approach first.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Are we able to, from this vantage point, make out any? Does like one side of the ship appear to be more damaged than others?
You all could approach the ship and walk around it. As far as things go, let's say you are coming up from. Oh man, I should have looked up ship words. I think aft is the back, and I think, let's say the ship is facing northwest, so you are coming up on the left side. I don't know ship
Port.
words.
Left
Port
is port.
and the
Left
back.
when you're facing the stern, bow.
Yeah, so
Port,
let's
starboard.
say. Oh wait. Bow is the front.
Bow is the front, and if you're at the
Yeah. So stern aft. Like you guys are basically like behind and on the left side of the ship, that it is facing northwest of you.
Okay.
From
So
what you
Brent,
can tell, it's just frozen in the ice. You don't see an actual damage to like the aft or stern side of it. Sides. Wood.
Johann would, be looking at it very much in terms of he'd be interested in trying to understand, what caused it to be cast aground. So I think he'd want to take a walk around it and examine it rather than immediately approaching, if that was okay with the rest of the group. But he's very unlike his normal character. Everything he asks, he's sort of putting in the form of a question for the others to approve of.
so Brannick will, knowing Johann has kind of got a kind of a sailor's background, he's going to kind of defer to him on the approach. And he would also suggest that he might be able to kind of uh, maybe try and sense if there's anything aboard, like intelligent or living, if they can get close enough.
So Johann's looking to like see the actual state of the ship from around it. Brannick wants to make sure that there's nothing like living on it at present. Correct?
Yeah, so my Brannick's thinking is he will, once he's within range, he would cast detect thoughts with like the searching for thoughts kind of feature of that spell. Sorry, I meant to show the thing. It's you can also use this spell to detect the presence of thinking creatures you can't see. within 30 feet of you. Oh, but it can penetrate barriers, but 2 feet of rock, 2 inches of any metal other than lead, or a thin sheet of lead. Um, but essentially, that's the idea that he has.
What's the thickness of like wood though? Penetrate barriers with 2 feet of rock.
Doesn't actually
Wood, it sounds
mention
like it
wood,
can
but
penetrate probably.
I mean, I think like if it was
Seems like
really,
rock
really
and metal.
thick, yeah. I mean, it doesn't mention wood, so I don't know what the I mean, it's probably wood's less dense than a rock, so I presume like if it was like a solid wood for for real long period, it would block it like other materials. But I don't know what it would actually like what the thickness would have to be to affect it.
Alrighty. So let's see. We have that will start off with let me get a perception from or investigation from um Johan here. Right now you guys should just have a little view of the stern of the ship. Or
Yep,
a
like a
stern.
little U kind of. Yep.
Does detect thoughts have an intelligence rating? 3?
Yes, anything below or let's see if it's I think it's 3 or below is not affected. But I don't think that's anything Brannick wouldn't know.
And at first you're just gonna gain surface thoughts?
So at first it would just essentially like locate um like thinking creatures within
It'll
range. And then I think
Gotcha.
once he does that, then if he maintains like his concentration on the spell, he's then able to use like the surface thoughts part of it. But like the immediate thing is to just sense if there's any essentially thinking creatures, but without actually at the very beginning sensing any thought. I can try and post the actual
No, you're good. I was looking for a particular number. So I think you're going to basically recognize that there are 5 creatures on board um, that will kind of ping to you as you initially do this.
Okay, so as kind of I sense this, I would maybe kind of put a hand on Johan's shoulder and just kind of hold up a hand, like hold up 5 fingers, and be like, "There's some sort of creatures aboard. 5 of them, if I'm right. Should proceed very cautiously."
Johann nods. I think switches from having his crossbow ready to mason shield.
And what is Felixus thinking here? Oh, do we still have the tab? Okay, there we go.
Yeah. I'm in.
What are you thinking? Is they basically Brannick is identifying that there are 5 creatures on ship here, and you're watching as Johan is preparing himself. I'm assuming this also would include Brannick is mage armored up here.
Yeah, he would have done that kind of probably as we after we left the camp or even earlier in the day.
Theoretically, then you'd probably be on time to cast the second mage armor. This is effectively like late in the day at this point.
Okay, yeah. So he would have done it at the beginning of the day, I think, when they left camp. So he'll cast it again. And I think at one point we would have during the short rest is would I have been able to use my arcane recovery to essentially
Oh, for
recover
sure.
that.
Yep. Each of those dog rests is effectively like, I think you guys have probably done 4 legs where you've had, technically you guys can take 2 short rests in those hours that you would stop. But there were 4 opportunities for you guys to short rest.
Okay, yeah. So he would have cast it a second time and used the arcane recovery. So during one of those rests, so essentially he's only burned one first level slot, and then the second level for detect thoughts, obviously.
Yeah, Alyssa's gonna I did the same armor up with the mage armor, but she's gonna also get a firebolt ready because she doesn't have longer than she would have as a dagger, and she feels a firebolt would be more effective than a dagger.
Gotcha. So like firebolt, you can prepare that as a ready to reaction. What is your trigger that you are going to do? Just as soon as you see something, you're going to cast a firebolt?
Not as soon, because she's thinking that it just in case it's something friendly or someone friendly. So it'll be more or less. I don't want to say a clear view, but once
At
it's
that
stepped
point,
into
I'm
view,
going to go ahead and say you are not readying a firebolt, but you are ready to start casting a firebolt.
yeah, pretty much. She's gonna throw it. She's gonna cast it, ready to cast a fireball in the event that they are attacked by whatever is in there. She wants to get a clear view of what it is first before she decides to
Yeah,
start.
but if you're readying the action, it comes down to you're casting firebolt, and every 6 seconds it's just dissipating. You're casting firebolt, and then it's dissipating. You're casting firebolt, and then it's dissipating. Versus you're just walking around like ready to actually fight something. Um, so as you approach this thing deeper, Brannick, your detect thoughts is kind of like sinking in. I think you can get closer to it. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, so he's at this point, as they get a little bit closer, he's just going to kind of reach out with the spell and try to maybe focusing on the nearest one and just trying to essentially skim the surface thoughts, like get a sense like are they um is this thing scared? Uh is it like is it you know like on watch? I'm trying to think of the word. Anxious, scared, uh like just kind of like the first surface thought.
So the first surface thought you're going to get is um, kind of a state of fear, worry. This creature is like kind of stressed.
Okay, so Brannick would quietly try to let the others know that's what he's sensing.
Johann is trying to think, okay, if we wanted to get onto the ship, would we be able to essentially clamber from the ice onto the ship, or do we have to continue searching for ladders or another way to get onto the ship?
Where you've kind of looked from your initial investigation, you have an understanding that um, go back to my picture of the ship. The like starboard quarter and the port quarter, I think those are still like raised portions of like that aft deck that are probably like 20 feet higher than you. but as you approach like the starboard or port beam, it's about like 10 feet above the ice. You can tell that I brought up a picture.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was.
I tried to be prepared, but I was not ready for this ship at all today. Again, like that was an awesome move from Justin, but I was like, oh shit, I don't have my ship lingo ready. So you have a pretty good sense, like you guys can climb onto the actual ship if you start to basically pick a side and go for, I assume, like kind of the center of the ship is the beam, and that's why port and starboard have like their beam at that like center point.
Yep.
I don't think it actually gives you a space though, for Brennick. But when you're thinking, I mean, I feel like you'd know basically 30 feet. Effectively, these creatures are somewhere within the ship. Um, I pretty much revealed 30 feet forward almost perfectly. So right now, the like you that you guys can see, that is pretty much where these creatures are at present.
Okay, and is Brannick able to sense like they seem to be close together or spread out, or is that too kind of too granular for him to know with this spell?
I don't see anything inside of it that tells me that it gives you like a location, except for that they are basically there. I feel like you basically have a 90 or a 30-foot radius around you that you just sense all of these consciousnesses. So you're able to kind of block out the people that you know from this party, from that thought, and there's like 5 extra intelligent creatures here.
Okay, right, yeah, but not pinpoint the location. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't see anything in it that kind of tells me that you would be able to pinpoint more. But that is where I would say, like, I think also you do have that option of kind of delving into another mind or delving deeper. And I think you would have a reference of you've now experienced one of these 5 minds.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the detection spells typically say like they don't pinpoint location; they just kind of give you a general sense of. Yeah, but Brannick might kind of, as they're looking for a kind of the best approach, he might kind of like uh move on to another one of the intelligences that he sensed, and kind of similarly, again, just kind of like skimming the top surface thoughts, like if trying to get the idea like if this thing's also scared, or if he senses the same kind of emotions or surface thoughts that he got from the first one.
So I guess I've kind of already given a little bit of the idea that you sense maybe something closer, perhaps a little bit stronger. So what do you think about, are you still going for something that feels more immediate? Are you feeling like something stronger or weaker connection? Um, Maybe that's a viable question as well, to at least give you some control over like that sense of how far something might be.
Um, I mean, if he's able to kind of get an idea of the what might be, then I mean, he would probably think, not really knowing exactly how this
Part of what
magic
I'm
works.
getting at is I think the one that you connected to that's afraid, kind of stressed and scared, would be like that strongest connection.
Yeah, so maybe he would kind of maybe thinking in his head like, that might maybe that means it's the closest. He would kind of like try and move out to something a little bit weaker, thinking maybe that's something farther away, but obviously not knowing for sure. But
So as you kind of like reach out to one that feels a little bit weaker, perhaps trying to feel like, is this all the same? Like, is everything maybe trapped on this ship? Um, you get a pretty similar sensation from this one that seems to be something that is scared, feels like it's in danger, but it almost has a sense of security right now.
Okay, so Brannick would similarly kind of relay to the others, sort of what the similar sense, and um, don't know what these things are, but it may be that we can talk with them, or maybe that um, we can convince them to leave. I don't know, but
Perhaps it's our friends the kobolds from last night.
If it is, then that's. But let's just remember last we had the cobalt talking about mentioned the word cobalt. If it is, there's a chance we can make friends with them. If it's not, well, hopefully we can still make friends.
So are you still kind of shifting between these different creatures?
uh, yeah, I would think still keeping at like the very basic service level. I think as I um yeah, I would probably try to be getting a sense of all five of them as we're kind of as I'm able to, as we're looking for a um way up on board aboard.
So when you go for a creature 3, there are two. Actually, you know what? Roll a D100 for me. So when you go for creature 3, you have two that feel a little bit weaker and one that feels a little bit stronger. You basically have a sense that this second creature that you went to is kind of like in the middle of where this like mental connection is. So do you want to go like towards the weaker side or towards a stronger side?
Probably towards a weaker side.
Gotcha. Roll any die and odd and even basically is what I'm looking for here. So as you connect to this next one, this creature doesn't have any fear to it. It seems far more animalistic. It's hunting. This is a predator.
So Brannick would sensing that, he would again kind of try and relay that to the others quietly, and um at this point probably like almost like taking he would uh have out his he would be taking out his dagger, kind of already holding the orb in one hand. He would, as he senses this and tells them that this he sense something that doesn't seem afraid, and he would be pulling out his dagger and kind of trying to warn them to we need to be careful. Perhaps someone's being held prisoner, or it's difficult to make out any details, but
So, I mean, just in that time, you would have another option to shift there. Do you think you're shifting towards one of the other creatures, or are you going to go deeper into the one that feels predatorious, pred- predacious?
Uh, sorry. Yeah, I think he would try to he would try to essentially dig deeper into the third one as he sensed the more kind of predacious nature.
Gotcha. So as he's describing this creature, you guys can see his attention is kind of like drawn away, but he's still describing the situation. What are Velixis and Johann doing at present?
Uh, I think Johann might move forward, maybe 5, 10 feet, again, trying to see if, because Johann is thinking that if they go on board, they should try to go on board a little bit more amidships rather than over the stern where these creatures are.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are moving, you can place yourself on that map and move where you would like to go to. And that way you can show me whether you're going port or starboard.
And I don't know exactly how long it's been, but just want to kind of remind myself too that detect thoughts is only a 1 minute. So
Yeah, I think right now, what you are 4 in, so 24 seconds.
okay. Yeah, and I
So,
guess in terms of movement, Brannick's like he's sticking close to Johan, but kind of letting him take the lead on because he knows ships better than Brannick's been on ships, but he doesn't, he's not a sailor.
I really hate to do this, folks, but I am going to have to get going really, really quickly now. Um,
that's perfectly
I-
fine. We can call it
okay.
here. Um, Before you do go immediately, we'll again kind of pause it in this moment because this was essentially close to where I wanted to end it anyways. But with that probe into it, this creature is going to both recognize that you are there, as well as you are going to start to gain some more insight as to what it is. And it's going to be in this moment that you realize that this creature came here hunting seals. It discovered some kobolds, and they have locked themselves inside of the hold of the ship. And you are currently like now known to this creature, which is a troll.